There once were 11 7-week-old chickens who were crammed into a box for a ride to their brand new home. There were 3 Rhode Island Reds, 3 Buff Orpingtons, 3 Black Australorps, and 2 Americanas. For a time, they would all pile into the same long nest box to sleep. It was so cute. They were happy and healthy and really seemed to enjoy their new place. They did all those fun things normal young chickens do, running around, spreading their wings, posturing for top spots in the pecking order. And then Buffett was a Buff Orpington, easy to tell from her 2 sisters because her feathers were a little darker. She did not seem to like the rain much. A couple of times, soaking wet, she would come up to the sliding glass door and really want to come in. At one point, she hurt her leg and began limping and lying down for a time, but she recovered. I had forgotten all about this and was amazed at the resemblance to Luma's chronic condition. About 5.5 months after arriving, Buffett just disappeared. No feathers, no body, no evidence, just gone. Rojo was a Rhode Island Red Hen. She was a great egg layer and one of the many chickens who enjoyed sitting on the love seat on the deck, back when we would allow them on there. She was also one of the friendlier hens, making me like her all the more. One day, I arrived home after running some errands. As I pulled up to the driveway, I saw a hawk fly in front of me from the backyard. I had a bad feeling. Scanned the backyard and quickly spotted a chicken against the back fence. I ran over and found Rojo, dead. She had no marks on her body. The kill must have just happened. I thought, if only I had made it home a minute earlier. I put her body in the woods and sadly told her goodbye. Duma was another Buff Orpington. She had attitude. She was by far the most spiteful egg layer. When a hen lays eggs in a place outside the coop, I call that place a spite nest. Her favorite places were among the ivy in one of our front flower beds and amidst vines behind our backyard fence. Real-life egg hunts. But wouldn't you know, Miss Spite ended up broody. The only broody hen we've ever had. She started staying on the nest November 1st, 2018. We put 6 eggs under her. 5 ended up being viable. My husband and I canceled Thanksgiving travel plans, knowing that we might have baby chicks later in the month. And sure enough, on November 21st, the first egg hatched. We ended up with 4 adorable little black baby chicks. But we made mistakes with those babies. We assumed Duma would be a better protector. Wrong. We didn't know animals like squirrels and crows prey on baby chicks, both of which are plentiful and had relatively easy access to them. We allowed them out without human supervision. One by one, they disappeared. The last one made it to 5.5 weeks old, and I finally had the courage to name it. I chose Lefty because its little beak curved to the left, though the issue didn't interfere with its eating. Lefty went missing January 1st. Happy New Year! It was pretty devastating. 2.5 months after we lost Lefty, Duma suffered the same fate as her other babies, as well as Buffett, and also disappeared without a trace. We had had her about 8 months. Rudy was a Rhode Island red rooster. My husband had wanted one more rooster to join Kenda, since we would now have a good amount of hens. He was the friendliest of the bunch. He had no problem being held and liked to jump on my back. He grew to be a handsome fellow, with a very impressive comb and wattle. There were no major issues between him and the other roosters. But Rudy eventually turned into a jerk. He would often charge at me, and he once drew blood through my jeans. Even with all this, if he'd jump up on the fence, he was fine with me picking him up and petting him. He was an enigma. My husband and I went on vacation and had all the chickens locked up in the coop for a solid 5 days. Apparently, Rudy did plenty of thinking and plotting during his imprisonment. Upon returning home, I immediately went over to let the chickens out as there was still some daylight left. Not much later, my husband told me that he had to separate Kenda and Rudy because Rudy had pinned Kenda against a fence and was relentlessly pecking his head. Zeke thought Kenda might be dead as his comb was all bloodied. Thankfully, he was all right. I left to pick up my dog from a friend's, and as soon as I saw Zeke when I got back, I knew he was upset. I asked what happened, and he said, "I had to kill Rudy." Although separated from Kenda, he still had access to our other rooster, America 1776, and so Rudy had pinned him in the coop and proceeded to attack him. This aggression could not be tolerated, so my husband did what he had to do. This happened about 11 months after we got him. America 1776 was not a great rooster. We originally thought he was a hen and were disappointed when it turned out otherwise. He was handsome to be sure, but the ladies did not care for him at all. He was either Mr. Sloppy Seconds, waiting in the wings when Kenda would do his business with the hen and then take advantage, or he was a total brute, chasing a hen very much against her will. I don't think I ever saw any consensual relations occur with America. A couple of the more vulnerable hens stopped leaving the coop altogether for a while, and I'm convinced it was to avoid his rapey ways. Since he was basically a detriment to our flock, less than 2 months after Zeke put Rudy down, America joined him in rooster heaven. Caliente was our third Rhode Island red hen. She laid some impressively large eggs. She was by far the most vocal protester if you came near her while she was laying an egg. That sound really seemed like a hint of her dinosaur past. One morning, when letting the chickens out, I immediately noticed Caliente was not feeling well. She was lethargic and did not want to eat. She didn't even care about extra tasty treats, like corn. Eventually, she made her way back into a nest box, but was clearly doing poorly. We moved her away from everyone, but she never got better, and passed away later that day. This was about 15 months after we got her. Gemini was the third of our black Australorps. I admit, she and her 2 sisters never stood out to me. Then one day, I was in the house and heard a chicken commotion outside. I looked out the window into the backyard and saw a hawk on top of a black chicken behind the back fence. I beat on the window and then ran outside. The hawk had flown off, but I was sure I was about to find a dead chicken. To my surprise, Gemini was still alive, but her right eye had been damaged and she was blind in it. She remained timid because of her disability, but did eventually live fairly normally. This made her a favorite of mine. 1 year and 1 day after that hawk attack, Zeke and I arrived home from a church event. As usual, I immediately went to check on the chickens. At first I only saw Luma, who looked scared. I went to the coop and saw chickens huddled and hunkered down. I quickly counted and realized one was missing, and it was Gemini. Looking around for her, I eventually saw a long path of feathers that ultimately led to what was left of her. She wasn't able to survive a hawk attack this time. Gemini has been the hardest loss to take because she had overcome such trauma. We had her for nearly 2 years. Life with chickens is just like life with any animal. There are good times and bad times, and thankfully, much more of the former. But the bad times are a reality as well. All life is precious, and I'm grateful for the happiness each of my chickens has brought me.